Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today I want to share with you how to make these really easy nesting die backgrounds. I'm going to be using the brand new zigzag dies from Cat Scrappiness. But before I do that, I want to remind you to follow me across social media. Those links will be down in the description box below. Also, while you're down there, if you want, you can subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content. And if you like this video, the thumbs up button always helps. I will be using a few of these new sets from Cat Scrappiness. These are the zigzag nesting dies. They have a nice stitching border around them. They're really fun to play with, and I wanted to share how just to make some very quick but fun backgrounds. These are totally customizable. The first one I'm going to be using the rectangle zigzag dies, and I'll be watercoloring a background. The first thing I want to do is go ahead and do my die cutting. So I have some craft cardstock here, and I'm using the two smallest rectangles from that die set. Now this is where you can have fun and play around with your design. I'm using the two smallest, but you can do one size if you want to and not do a fill-in die. You can do larger dies. You're just going to have less of them on your panel, but that may be the look you're going for. I'm going for the more the better here, basically. For my background on this card, I'm going to be doing a watercolor ombre background. I'm using my Spectrum Aqua brushes. These are just a watercolor brush, kind of like any other watercolor brush. They're really fun to play around with, and I'm scribbling down the color onto some watercolor paper. This is the Arteza watercolor paper. It's just what I like to use, but use whatever you have on hand. This panel I'm scribbling the color onto measures 4 inches by 5 1/4, so slightly smaller than your A2 size. I like to start off with my darkest color and work my way down to my lightest. I'm only using 3 colors here. You can go more if you want to. You can go less if you want to, and just build up your color. Now once I had my color down onto my cardstock, I'm going to take a water brush and just start blending this out very quickly. I like to start from the top and work my way down again, kind of dragging that darker color with me as I go. If you feel like you're getting too much darker color all the way down your panel, just clean your brush off before you move on to your next color like I'm doing here. I've got a dry cloth off to the side, and I just wipe off part of that color if I feel like I have too much pigment and I feel like I'm dragging too much of that color. Don't do what I just did. Don't take your brush while it has that darker color down to your very lightest color and go back up the panel. Keep working your way down from the darkest to the lightest, and it should blend out very easily, very, very quickly. I'm not doing a whole lot of work on this background because the majority of it's going to be covered up. That's something when you're creating your backgrounds, just remember. So don't throw a whole lot of effort into it, really intricate, maybe blending or something like that, because you're going to only see very, very little of it. To line up these panels on the actual card panel itself, or the die cuts on the panel, I'm lining up the corners. These have straight edge corners on them, so I'm just lining each one up and kind of just connecting them like you would a puzzle. I like to start off with the largest ones, and then I also like to start off with my sentiment panel. I stamp my sentiment on one of the die cut panels. It says "So Thoughtful." I'll add a little more decoration to tie in that sentiment later on to finish the card. But once you get to a certain point, you're going to have these little bitty pieces that are just going to be barely hanging on the card. Make sure that you're adding adhesive to the parts that are going to stay on the card, so whenever you go and cut off the excess, they're not going to fall off. But I'm using foam tape to adhere mine. This is again where you can customize if you want to. You can use foam tape and have that dimension like I'm doing here, or you can use regular adhesive and just place it flat onto the panel itself. It really is up to you. Once you have them all connected and placed on the panel, I like to use long blade scissors and trim them off. You can use a paper trimmer if you want to cut that nice and flush with the panel itself. You could leave this as is. It's gorgeous, I love it, but I wanted to come in and add these very small die cuts in the center of each open space. Again, I'm using foam tape. You can switch this up and glue these directly down, so you've got 2 different layers of dimension going on here. That'd be really fun. You could do the opposite, glue the larger panels down and pop these up. You can pop them both up like I'm doing here. You can double up your fun foam. It really is up to you what you want to do. Again, you're going to have some pieces that are going to be hanging off. Make sure that you have adhesive on the pieces on the panel, so whenever you go and chop off the excess, they don't fall off your card like I'm doing here. Now to finish this card off, I used the So Thoughtful stamp set from Sunny Studios Stamps. I will leave that link down below. I did the little needle with some thread just at the bottom around the sentiment and kind of let the rest of the card alone and really shine on its own. Now that's the first card. Let's go ahead and make the next one. This next one I'm using the square die set. Again, I want to start off with my die cutting. So I'm using the two smallest. That's my preference for this design. If you want to, you can go larger. You're just going to have less on your panel itself. I'm going to go ahead and die cut several of these with my Big Kick, and I'm using white cardstock for this. You can do any color of cardstock that you think goes with your design. You could do pattern paper. It really is up to you. For the background on this card, I'm going to be doing some ink blending. I'm using Versafine Clair inks. I'll list the colors up at the top because I am horrible with color names. I'm horrible with people names too, to be quite honest. I can't remember anybody's name, but I'm even worse with ink names. So I'll leave those linked at the top, or listed at the top, linked down below. I'm using these blending brushes to go ahead and do a quick blend. Again, not a lot of this is going to be seen, so I'm not really worrying about getting that nice ink blending. I'm not taking my time like I should do when I'm ink blending. I'm just kind of throwing the color on there, getting as good of a blend I can while I'm hurrying. I like to go through or go between two colors at one time just to blend back and forth between the two. The great thing about these, though, these are pigment inks, so they're going to sit on the paper a while and stay wet. If you wanted to, and take this even one step further, you could add like a shiny embossing powder over this background. That would be really fun. A glitter embossing powder, that'd be fun. A lot of different things you can do with them. Again, my first one I watercolored, this one I did some ink blending. Now I'm going to start building up my little panels on this. So in the center, I'm going to start out with my center panel, my largest one, and that holds my sentiment. I went really clean and simple with this one. I wanted this to be more on the masculine side because I feel like the zigzags kind of lend themselves to masculine cards. They're more symmetrical. There's no fluffy, frilly things on them. I just feel like they're very masculine, or they can be more feminine, but I feel like they lean towards the masculine card style. They work really well with it. I start with that center with the sentiment, and then I build out from there. So I went ahead and placed my right one on next, right up to that. And again, I'm using those straight edges to line these up. You can use a ruler if you wanted to, but I find just lining them up with those straight edges works really, really well. Now I'm going to show you a close-up of this sentiment. I love the sentiment panel on this one, and I really wanted it to be the focal point, so I went ahead and placed it right in the center of the card, like I said, and then built out from there. Now with this card, instead of using the squares like as you would a normal square, I went ahead and turned it on an angle and used it as more of a diamond shape with this design. As you remember with the last one, I went more of an angle with those, so I just put them at a little bit of an angle. Sometimes just changing up the angle of the design can really look like a whole new die set to you. So if you have squares, maybe turn them on their sides. The rectangles, use them at an angle. It really is up to you how you want to go about doing this. So in all those open spaces, I went ahead and placed the smaller ones, again using foam tape for that. I love the added dimension. And then I cut the panel flush with, or I cut the die cuts flush with the panel. That finished off that card. The only thing I did was mount it onto a card base, an A2 top folding card base, to finish off the entire card. I love the simplicity of this card, but it looks like you did so much work on it. This was a really fun technique. I can't wait to try it with even more of these dies. I think the zigzag is perfect. That is going to do it for me today. There are links on the left side of your screen you can click on. You can also subscribe to my channel over there if you haven't already. Don't forget all the information down in the description box. Thanks for watching and happy crafting.